And I felt like, I can give y'all perspective from a woman's perspective. You have to get that hood barbershop perspective, and then you get that North Carolina / Harlem perspective, and then you get my perspective. So we all get. So what's up, Kenyatta?
Man, chilling, man. Out here in the land of Lala, out here in Los Angeles.
What you living?
I'm saying you back.
Really?
Yeah. What you know? Oh, we good.
That's just stunning. It's a rainy day out, but you got
It's a rainy day, but trying to protect myself from the bad sun rays, the UV rays.
What you call it? The land of the what?
The land of Lala.
Lala.
Yeah, Los Angeles.
All right, so let's get right into something intellectual, a question or something like that. You know what I mean? I know I did a little introduction, but I can't get right into it. What's happening?
Man, everything's good, man.
What are you doing?
We're actually looking for this one dynamic question that
You don't have to get questions like that?
Yeah.
What's up?
Man, everything's good, man. But I mean, for me, I wanted to talk more about being independent and how much patience it takes. I want to talk about that because I know that for you.
You want to get right into that?
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like you had a lot of patience.
Well, being an entrepreneur means having nothing but patience. And it also means being prepared for somewhat of a war. Because number one, you got to put up your own money. You have to have an idea, be passionate about it, get people to follow it, and again, put up your own dough. Then you have to be exposed for a little while. The more demand there is, the broker you get because you got to keep putting up bread. So also, when you become an entrepreneur, you have to not be afraid to be broke because that's the only way it means you're being successful. So in any company that I've ever started, from Rockefeller to Rachel Roy, it got to where the lights almost went out, each and every company, because the more demand you have, the more you have to pay for product. And when you're trying to remain independent, sometimes that demand outweighs your pocket, you know what I'm saying, especially after a while. So you kind of push it to the red line, and then, basically you end up having to compromise to go from level A to B. But if you could just stick it out, pause for just a little longer, you could usually do it on your own. And what's always happened to me is I've had partners that get scared when it gets critical. It's the darkest.
They retreat.
Well, they just tell me yo, let's take the deal. So I didn't want to take the Def Jam deal. I didn't want to take those deals. I wanted to stay in. I was, I had a crew, so they were like, we want to get our bread back, and it's time to.
Was that what you felt when you had Rockware? Is that what you went through?
Well, for Rockware, to be honest, when we started trying to do clothing ourselves, I was just losing a whole lot of dough, and I decided not to approach it that way because I didn't know what I was doing. So for Rockware, I had partners off top, but for Rachel Roy, going from, because I don't consider Rockware fashion, you know what I mean? That was just putting logos on regular blanks. It didn't really mean too much in the mass. But for Rachel Roy, it was considered fashion. I had to develop it, I had to build a brand, I was doing what I had to do to get into Bergdorf Goodman as opposed to Dr. J's. And I actually had to sign on to a business plan to lose $2 million a year before we made $1 for 5 years, and I was at 4. So for Rachel Roy, it was more like that. When I had a demand for goods, I had $2 million worth of orders, and I only got $1 million, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna be able to collect that $2 million in 6 months, and I gotta continue, you know what I mean?
Right.
It started to get critical, and that's when we did the deal with Jones. And, even right now.
So that would be a form of working with corporate, the deal with Jones.
Well, you always work with corporate, corporate is not work, it's work with corporate, not work for corporate. You understand what I'm saying? So corporate's there, and they'll work with you any way they can get money from it. But if you decide to give them all your rights for short paper, and then they're telling you what to do, then yeah, it's not yours. And then that's working for corporate. But when you do a partnership or synergy, whether it's distribution, or they're putting up the money or covering the money that you put up, and then you're breaking it down, all the deals I've ever had have been co-ventures. You know what I mean? But the problem is with those co-ventures, is sometimes, they're putting up the money, and whoever's putting up the money ultimately feels like the boss. Even when it's they're putting up the money on someone else's behalf, that person thinks they're the boss, and that usually would get to me, which is why I was always arguing in Def Jam with that co-venture.
Because the whole.
What I was saying was, right now, even as an independent, I just put up all my money to make my platform, Thing Dash Studios, and to populate it with content, so making the movies.
Okay.
So I'm millions in a hole right now, and there's a demand, and I'm at that place where it's yo, am I gonna sell out, or am I gonna just keep it and put it out myself and roll it out independently, or am I gonna, sell it to somebody and let them do what they want to do with it. But the best thing for me is to stay independent. So it means I got to embrace being tight for a little while. But that's part of being an independent is being cracked.
It's interesting you said it because my like what I always felt was that because you said something about like you think futuristic. Does that have a lot to do with the fact that how you develop patience in business?
Well, I think in the future, I'm a firm believer that everything in my present is dictated by what I did in my past, and everything I do in my present is going to reflect in what happens and what I have in the future. So I'm always thinking in the future. If I'm feeling uncomfortable in the present, I'm not really uncomfortable because I don't care about the present. It's about my future. You know what I mean? And the reason why I'm uncomfortable usually is because I put myself in that position. But whenever I am comfortable, it's because of what I did years ago. So for example, I'm eating right now, not off of anything Rockefeller, but off of like Rachel Roy. I did that 10 years ago, but I'm very confident that in 10 years, I won't be eating off of Rachel Roy. I may still be, because that's the company I started and still own a good part of. But I should be eating off of what I'm doing with Dame Dash Studios. That's the wave to me. That's the future. So that's the reason why I'm hustling now, because I'm 44. It's like I'm not trying to start a new business at 55. Anytime you start a new business, any startup is rough. I don't care who you are, how big you are, starting from scratch. Like you just came from music and then you go to fashion. All that music shit doesn't matter other than you have like notoriety and credibility, but you still have to start from scratch. You still got to go through the growing pains. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm a person that continuously puts myself in a startup position. Even with Rockefeller, when I left Rockefeller, I had to start a whole new brand. The last 10 years, what I've been building is a new Dame Dash. It's Dusko Poppington. Like I was known for pouring champagne on girls and yelling at people 10 years ago. Now I'm a little bit more known for being conscious of what goes on in the culture, being independent, investing. It's a different Dame Dash that you know now than you know 10 years ago. I wanted to be known and I had to build a different brand, and I didn't want to make money off of anybody else. 10 years ago my business model was make money off Jay-Z, make money off Kanye, make money off Kevin Hart, make money off Cameron, make money off Rachel Roy. I needed to make money off myself. So I had to invest in a brand new brand, 10 years, because in order to be a brand, you got to be consistent. You know what I'm saying? So I had to invest in that for 10 years, and now it's time to start to monetize, to make the bread back. But also I had to evolve. Everything I was doing had to be better than what I did. You know what I'm saying? So, you got to have patience in business. The initial question was patience. Yeah, you have to have patience. You have to be able to sustain being broke, because you can't be rich unless you're broke in independent business. Unless there's such a demand that you're about to be cracked, you're not doing well. You understand what broke is part of rich in independence.
Can you break that down? Being broke is part of being rich, because most people wouldn't even understand.
But that's my man Bootsy over there. Well, I'm putting it in home terms, right?
That's what's up.
All right. So basically, let's say you got a bunch of money,
Right.
but you go buy a bunch of work. So now you got a bunch of work sitting. You understand what I'm saying? Right then in that moment, some people might say you was broke.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? But you got a bunch of work sitting on the table.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Now, when you hit the people with the work and they go sell it, if there's so much of a demand, like let's say I got $100,000 worth of work, but now there's $200,000 worth of demand.
Right.
How the hell I'm gonna get that $200,000 worth of demand? That's another way of being broke. Now I have to spend every dollar that I have going to get some more work,
Right.
because there's such a demand for it.
Right.
Now let me put it in a different perspective. Also, imagine being out on the first of the month and not having no work, and people are coming to your spot and you don't have none, and they going someplace else to get it.
Right.
That also will drive you nuts.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So, you gotta be broke to be rich. You understand? And the minute you get all the money back, that you collect all the money that you got on the street, you back super rich again.
And that was my next thing. As long as you got work, you got
As
money.
long as you got working in business, that's called cash flow. As long as you got cash flow, you ain't gotta have a big lick. So for me, my movie costs $1 million or $2 million. I don't need that back day one. I just need $100,000 a month.
Right.
$200,000 a month, so I can keep moving and keep working. Because you gotta pull your money out of what you have it invested in to put it in something different. You can't even start nothing new until you get your money back that you've invested. Until you re-up, you can't buy more work.
Right.
So that's another thing. Imagine this is what happened with me and Rachel Roy. I had millions tied up in Rachel Roy, and I had to wait to get my money back to put it into the millennial things I was trying to do as it related to making movies and building a platform for Dame Dash Studios. I had to wait to get that money back. So you invest $6 million in a company, it takes 10 years to get it back. Everybody running around for 10 years saying you broke, and you're like, yeah, but you still gotta, figure out how to do new things before you get your bread back. You understand what I'm saying? It's like how electric cars happen. I was trying to build electric cars with Malcolm Bricklin about 7 years ago. That's right. It was like Tesla, the Karma, and the Bricklin. And it was like the auto industry wasn't ready to get into the electric cars. They knew about everything, but they were so heavily invested in the factories for old cars, making the old models.
Right.
So they couldn't get into the electric business until they got their money back from their investment in the old way.
Right.
So sometimes you might prematurely invest in something old, and then a new thing comes up. Then the only way to get your money out of the old is to sell it for cheap or down, you know what I mean? But you gotta get your bread back to get into another company. But that's the life of an entrepreneur. You gotta be built for that. You know what I'm saying?
So you can't prepare for obstacles then. There's no preparation when it comes to this.
You know there's going to be obstacles. Just like a wave. You surf. You don't know how big the wave is. You don't know what it's gonna look like. You just know when it comes through, you're gonna surf it.
So all the planning in the world is not gonna prepare you for what's to come.
You can plan, you can condition. It's like I box, right? The difference between seeing a punch and not seeing the punch is very dramatic. So if you see the punch, you can brace your face, it hits, you can go keep walking. Most of the time when you don't see the punch, it knocks you the fuck out. You understand what I'm saying?
So it's not planning, it's conditioning.
It's conditioning.
That really makes
Yeah, because everything's subject to change, man.
Everything's different, but one thing I do know is this: when it's looking like I'm the most cracked, that's when I know I'm about to be rich. So I embrace the broke. I embrace I'm cracked now. You know what I'm saying? Right now I'm cracked in the way where it's like, damn, there's so much demand for my movie. I just finished the movie. I just spent the money on making it. Now I'm like, damn, I'm fucked up. But I'm good. That's what I want to do.
So being cracked to you is like a form. That increases your concentration.
It's like pre-game for rich. If I feel cracked, then I know I'm not going to be rich.
I like how that's
trademark that. You got to copyright that. Trademark. What you say? He said it's pre-game for the rich.
Broke is pre-game for rich. When you're if you're just sitting around broke, yeah. But if you started with some bread and you spending money, and now there's such a demand that it's like it becomes like urgent for you to get more money, and you don't have it. That usually means you're about to be rich. But a lot of people get scared and jump out the window. That's when they start giving. That's what the music business does, basically. Right. They'll wait for your record to, you'll be cracked, you won't have nothing. But the minute your record pops and it looks like it's about to go to the next level, that's when the music company comes in and says, you need me to take you to the next level. So you got to give me all your rights. You got to sign a 360. I need your merch. I need your show. I need your likeness. I need your publishing. Just so you get to the next. And usually people do that shit, but they really didn't have to. It's like one more stroke, one more minute, one more day, and you could have everything. But that test is if you really believe in yourself. And again, being broke for a day or two just means paying bills a little late. You know what I'm saying? It's not a big deal, man.
See, you saying that one more day, one more stroke, but see, that's what you felt when at the end of Rockefeller.
That's what I felt right before Rockefeller. I did the deal.
So you knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was going to be one more stroke of something that was going to set you guys to the next.
I knew
even bigger than what is going on now.
I knew it, but not everybody around me did. They put pressure on me to take that deal. I didn't want to take the deal. I never respected Leo. I always thought he was a clown. And I just didn't, I just was like, yo, why are we doing this, man? We can do it ourselves. And it was always a fight. It's always a constant struggle because perception is so much stronger than reality for some people. So, people think they need something, or if they're affiliated, or just having a piece of paper makes them look bigger than they are. They want that. That's not what I want. I never really just wanted to look like I'm big time. I need to be big time. I don't want to look like the boss. I gotta be the boss. I'd rather not look like the boss and be the boss than look like the boss and not be the boss. Because there's a lot of niggas that look like the boss and ain't nowhere near it. Especially out here in La La. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of that going on. There's a lot of that going on.
There's a lot of that going on. When I first started, you was rocking by yourself. So everything you were saying make so much sense.
But it seemed like they
teamed up with you with that.
But you see what we're doing now in North Carolina is we're doing everything ourselves.
Right.
So what we were able to do in North Carolina, and I call it the New North, is we figured out how to get our own television show, rent the space on NBC and put that on there and go get the ads ourselves. We did it ourselves. We figured out how to get on the radio out there. We figured out how to do our own factories out there. We figured out how to make our own music out there, which we already knew how to do. But also, making your own shows and how important all of those things are.
Right.
It's important to me to be independent just because of the longevity of it, the control of it, the fact that you know, when someone else owns something, you can't pass it along to your family. You can't practice any kind of nepotism. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And, you know, Rocky, you kind of quiet over there. What you think from a woman's perspective?
Well, I mean, it's just interesting because I've listened to a couple of your things from the past, and you're exactly the same person as you were like 20 years ago, just listening to old interviews. But it is true, everything you're saying about like the glossiness of being in the music, being signed to a record label. You know, it has this stigma that it's everything. This is what you worked
What you know
for.
what's crazy about that?
but-
How do you say signed? How do you like I belong to somebody? And
Exactly.
Feel good
Well,
about it?
It's like
you
slave.
know,
It's like being a slave.
Everybody
Like I'm a slave. I want to be a slave.
Exactly.
It never made sense.
But to the world, you look like you're a big dog if you were that label.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Understand
You know,
the power
Hollywood,
of, they
La La
already
has
made
made
that
this-
label come to them.
So it's like what you say, it's like, it's not your money, but you claim it. It's like you claim it's something that's not yours. So you try
Yeah,
to-
people pretend when they're spending other people's money that it's theirs, and it's not. And that's the whole music business, because no one owns one of those companies. It's just like a public company with,
They are employees.
they're all employees, and they're controlling the fund. But the person that controls someone else's fund tends to act like they're the boss, but that be the person
That's why you have so many problems when an employee is
Well,
telling
yeah.
you
Yeah.
what you can and can't do, or what you
That's
should
what my
do.
aggravation with life.
Yeah, that's
Like,
accurate.
you're not a boss, and you're talking to a boss, and you're talking to me like you're a boss.
Right.
And like this boss will smack the shit out of you. Like, that's how it makes you feel.
Right.
You understand what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
You're not doing that, of course.
Right.
But you know, when someone that's not a boss talks to someone that, like, it's like at a dice game. You know, you rolling dice and somebody else is get on your money,
The
that could
worst.
get you punched in the face.
Worst.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
You understand what I'm saying?
Problems.
So that's how I would look
You
at it.
speaking on my money.
Well, that's been my major problem within myself is figuring out how to determine or understand conscious difference between street mentality and non-street mentality. So if I'm in a very corporate scenario and somebody's doing something and disrespecting me in a way that in the street you get put in the trunk or get punched in the face, it would really frustrate me. It's like, I'm letting you talk to me this way, but you know, I'm not on the street no more.
Right.
I can't react like I'm on the street no more. I don't have to react. Like on the street, if you got a block and somebody disrespects you and you let that happen, forget about it. You can't be on that block no more. Correct. So you gotta handle it. But it's not like that in corporate. You know what I'm saying? It's not a block. There's no drugs. So it's like you gotta wear a lot of things and tolerate a lot of disrespect that you wouldn't in the street. And that's what my main problem has always been. I always take it like I'm on the block. I'm like, Paul. So I just can't, you know. So instead of like being physical, which is what you do in the street, and again, I don't advocate the street. My movie Too Honorable is more or less about the fact that to survive in the street, a good guy has to do bad things, and that good guy ends up in jail and dead, no matter what, regardless.
Yeah.
The good guys end up fucked up, but you're just a good guy. It's just
Because
you
there's
know,
people that don't even honor the code
if
too.
you-
So
yeah, but if
you gotta
you
deal with that.
well, it's just the consequence of the street is way different than regular life. So if you could take those ideals of honor and you can apply them in, you know, with legal things, you'll get a Jay-Z, a Kanye, a Kevin Hart, and all the other legal things that make history. You understand what I'm saying? But as a man, that's what bothers me. Somebody walks in here right now and disrespects my girl, I'm gonna wanna punch her in the face, punch that person in the face. That's just street shit. You understand what I'm saying? But I can't do that. You know, that just, in corporate world, I look like an idiot. You just decked the dude because he said something crazy
You
to
being
your girl.
emotional. You're being
You're
emotional.
being emotional.
Well, I
You know what I'm
think
saying?
the difference between the street and the corporate is that street, you have to deal with brains and muscle, whereas corporate is just straight
And law.
brains
And law.
and law.
Law.
You gotta have a
And
little
death.
muscle in corporate too, though. I mean,
Some nerds,
not fight-wise, but
that's the muscle.
Well, that's the difference, because Damon said I would want to punch the guy in the face.
There's many
That's
times
the-
you want to slap somebody.
Many times.
Right.
Many times, I'm sure.
Like almost like that. It would be like that. It would be like you get disrespected by nerds daily. You know, and I've you know, I have anger management now. I did a lot of therapy. You know what I'm saying? Just to be able to recognize it in that moment.
Yeah.
Because that's the moment that can mess up your future. You know, when you
Right.
react with your emotion and you lead with that and you let that control your action.
Pause and
You
breathe.
can't do that. So, you know, it's funny because the ideas that I've been selling generally have been my street principles, but I can't react to things like I'm from the street. You understand what I mean? And you gotta transition out of that. And it's not a smart thing to do. What I wanted to do was talk to Raquel about organic food. Yeah.
Well, it's nice being out here in LA, there's a lot more options.
Well, I wanted you to describe, because this is wifey for lifey. I'm in love for a living. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I have learned in my older years is the best thing in the world is to find your soulmate and your partner and your woman, to make her your muse, put her on a pedestal, and just do the things that make her happy, and you end up really happy. You know what I'm saying? So, because she ends up fighting for you, because you're fighting for her, and you're always happy. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, she's changed my life because, you know, there was a time I was always out hunting and recruiting, especially after Leah passed. I was always outside looking for some kind of a
Rocky can write her own book, because I know for a fact that she has jewels for every woman on how to be a woman to an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah, she knows.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, when you think about that, it's like, what are some keys? Like, I mean, it's definitely, like we said, patience. It definitely takes patience to, you know, to be with an entrepreneur.
Definitely patience and just
keeping them healthy. It's an organic world.
keeping them healthy mentally and physically, because you have to. There's gonna always be good times and like rough times right before the even better times. So,
but the thing is, relatively speaking, like a rough time for an entrepreneur is not so rough. It's
no,
like
it's not.
The best thing about coming from the street, you know, rough is always death, jail, you know, brains on the floor.
Right.
That shit is rough.
I've never done that.
So whenever I compare whatever problem I think I have, I always just backpedal to the real issues that I had that were real, like worrying about food. So then it's all relative. You're like, wow, this really isn't a bad place to be in life. You know
Basically
what I'm saying?
what you told Angela Simmons, like, you know, about problems, you know.
Yeah, they cut that shit up way different than it was. You know what I'm saying? Like,
they trying to make it
yeah, it made it look like I just got out of shit. You know, because we were talking and she was really going through it. Like, I'm really bothered because people think that. And I was just like, you worried about what people think? That's not a problem. But they made it like I was like eavesdropping and jumped into it. But regardless, the message was clear.
Yeah.
And she wore it well. She wasn't upset about it. I wasn't. And you know the thing about it, I wasn't really getting at it. That's just me. Like if I hear some bubblegum shit, I have to address it in the moment. It's hard to walk away, or it's just not a real conversation. You know, and she's like an adult. She's not a kid. She's like pushing 30. So I felt like she could handle that conversation, and she did. It was a.
I knew she wore it well when she met with her father, and she told him all the other stuff.
Yeah.
She didn't mention that to him.
Well, you don't know. She might have brought it up. They just edited it. That's the thing about TV. That they edit things. So he might have been like, "What? Dang, dang." You know what I'm saying?
So I know about it, but he gave it
because he gave the right answer. Yeah. Now, but Romeo, you know, he come from his father. You know, it come from. I don't know how extreme this thing was because it probably was more extreme than mine. But he come from real authentic experience. And you can see he appreciates his opportunity, and he's a good dad. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like what I notice about good dudes, they're all good dads. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not a good dude unless you're a good dad. At the end of the day, it's about your children anyway. So that's just part of being a good dude. If you, being a good father, and you know that's how you know.
That's kind of like a red flag. That's a red flag if you're doing business with someone and they're not even taking care of their children.
I don't do business.
That's a red flag for me all day.
A woman will definitely always know a good man by the way he takes care of others, especially his own.
Right. Even a good woman,
yes.
That she's not really taking care of her children.
Right.
Same thing.
Vice versa.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So you know, I thought, you know, I don't want to bore everybody. I felt like I should play some music that is inspired or I made or done on some independent